David's not coming?
No, he's in Florida. Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Streets and Transportation Committee meeting of the City of Rehoboth Beach on Thursday, May 19th at 2 p.m. I call the meeting to order. Roll call. David Diefendorf. Here. John Geiger. Geiger, sorry, John. Donna Maybury is walking in. And David Mann is absent, and the chair is here. So we have a quorum and can conduct business today. First on the agenda is the approval of minutes, which was emailed to everyone. I thank Dave for doing a diligent job with the minutes. They're very detailed. We've got one set of meeting minutes for approval for the meeting dated March 17th, 2022. Are there any changes, any discussion? With that, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
I would like to request to approve the minutes.
Okay, great. Second?
Second.
Thanks, John. So we've got a motion and a second to approve the March 17th, 2022 meeting minutes. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And the meeting minutes are approved. We do have some correspondence that was received. However, we have that embedded under old business number B, which is a specific topic. With that, I want to recognize that we have Chief Banks and Kevin Williams joining us today. We've got the pleasure of having the mayor sit back there and spy on me too. First on the agenda is an update on the sharrows that this committee recommended we paint on various streets throughout the city. So I'm just going to ask Kevin to do a brief update on that.
Thanks, Commissioner. I'm happy to report the sharrows were completed this week. So all the ones that the committee recommended to the board to have done were finished up in time for this season.
Oh, excellent. Yep. Thank you. Thank you very much, Kevin.
May I just say that I think that's a shame? I've been looking at the old things we've put out, and even the one that the city put out, I mean, the homeowners, and they all say, stay off Rehoboth Avenue. And what do? We put a sharrow there and say the bicycles, oh, go on down on Rehoboth Avenue.
Well, I think...
But it's too late for that. I voted against it.
We did have a lot of discussion about that, and I think while we encourage people not to go down Rehoboth Avenue, and we've got some signage to direct them other places, if they do go down Rehoboth Avenue, we do want the cars and cyclists to be mindful that they are there. So that was part of the discussion, but I do understand. Any questions for Kevin about the sharrows, or?
I just thought it was nice to have the city's write-up announcing to the public that the sharrows are coming and explaining what they're for. So I thought that was, they just didn't just appear for people. There's an explanation, so I thought that was nice.
The city has been doing a great job with communication, and we're lucky to have Lynn Cohen with us, who's helping us with that. Next on the agenda is an update and potential action on a curbing project at Grove Street and Columbia Avenue, that intersection there. Kevin, can I ask you to give us a little bit of a background on that and lead us into what the proposal from DelDOT that we have before us?
Sure. Do you have the drawing itself, or would you like me to?
I believe it was emailed to all of us, correct? And it's also embedded on the agenda?
We can talk to it off of there if we need to.
Sure.
So a resident submitted, I guess, to the committee a request to have curbing put in along at his lot, I guess, along Columbia. And I think we have the homeowner here if we want to ask any specific questions to him. But anyway, he was asking for a curb to be put kind of at that corner for a variety of reasons. So we went, he brought it to the committee. Committee said, yeah, Committee took it to the board. Board said, yeah, go research and see what would be required if we wanted to do something like that. So we had our engineering consultant reach out to DelDOT with some different ideas on what they would allow us to do out there, because Columbia is a state-maintained road. So this was kind of the scope of work they came back with that DelDOT would be willing for us to do. They weren't willing to do the work, obviously, but if the city was willing to do that work, this would meet their needs for ADA accessibility and whatever else they look for with respect to curbing and sidewalk and the like. So our consultant drew this up for their approval. They approved it. And then he also did a engineer's estimate for cost to do that, which came in at about roughly $30,000 to do that. So then the thought would be to bring it back to the committee to see if the committee wants to move forward with a recommendation to the board on whether or not to proceed with that. Because it does come at a cost other than just financial. I mean, it solves a lot of the problems, but it also, now you got a sidewalk that goes down one length of the property on Columbia where we don't have other sidewalks on Columbia. It works in and out a little bit in an effort to try to save a big old tree that's out there, and some other kind of things I think we could probably work through during construction. But the big effort, or the big ask, is to whether or not the committee wants to take it back to the board and recommend that we put that in the budget for next year to do, or to see if we want to put it in the budget for next year to do.
Kevin, thanks for the background. Mr. Good, I'll offer, or anyone in the public after, if you want to give a brief explanation on what you're asking for and why. Jeffrey, I'm just going to ask you to come up to the mic and state your name and your address.
Yes, hi, Jeffrey Good. I'm at 1 Grove Street, that house right there. I guess first, so I don't reiterate everything, I was hoping that the email from a year ago, March 28th, 2021, stating all the reasons why we wanted a curb, you guys got. I mean, I'm not sure if it actually is in the one that was addressed to the members of your committee before you took the vote on this. It was the dated March 28th, 2021. Do you guys have? Okay. Okay.
I've seen it.
Okay, good. Okay, well.
I think John's probably seen it.
Okay, so those, I wrote down the reasons, but I certainly could go over them. I state that that it's a long-standing issue that that dozens of cars each week continue to park on the no parking area on Columbia and Avenue on the west, right there, right where they're going to put the sidewalk, right by Grove Street. And despite the sign that's illegal to do so, and it's understandable why people are doing that, because most of them are workers. They're trying to go to Royal Farms. Royal Farms has a very small parking lot for the amount of business they get. So the overflow parking goes right where that sidewalk, well, I asked for a curb, but sidewalk's even better, right where the curb or the sidewalk might be, and not enough to block Columbia Road, but enough to make it very hazardous for anyone walking up Columbia, like me, almost every day, several times a day. You don't see the cars coming towards you, and as far as they're parked halfway onto my property there, and I've tried, actually I even tried 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago to plant grass there again, but it's impossible to plant anything because the cars go over it. And so it looks terrible, that whole area. And I acknowledged in the letter that the city has tried to help. They've, some of the things they've done is they put the yellow striped it with yellow lines to warn trucks and cars not to park there, that area. And there's a no parking sign. And these welcome attempts have not mitigated the problem. Now, in addition to the safety hazard, it's also causing a lot of erosion, and that whole area, I'm sure everyone's gone by it, it looks pretty bad. Meanwhile, if you cross the street to the other side of Columbia, there is a sidewalk and a curb, and there's no problem at all, because if a car did try to park where that curb is across by the Royal Farms, that blue, they'd be completely blocking Columbia. So nobody is that stupid to park there and block Columbia completely. They wouldn't, I've never seen any car parked there. Maybe you guys have, but so the curb completely solved the problem on the Royal Farm side. On my side, I get cement trucks, I get, you name it. It's always there because there's never enough room. You even see in the picture there, it's almost always filled up, the Royal Farms parking. And that's not even mentioning the farmer's market when it gets even more exacerbated. But, so, what have I done? For almost the last year, actually, Pat Caluzzi did me a favor. She suggested, well, why don't I try cones? So I have 3 cones there, actually the city's cones. They're sitting there, and it's mitigated a little bit, but I've often find people move the cones. I find cones crushed, and it looks terrible. I mean, almost a year now, I have cones sitting in the middle, right where you're looking at the picture. So we've tried all these half measures, and unfortunately none of them worked, and that's why we requested the curb. We didn't know that the city, we didn't understand until now that you can't just put a curb there, you have to put a sidewalk. So that's basically the background, that for project safety, aesthetic, and erosion reasons, we would love for the city either to put a curb or the sidewalk there. And we appreciate that Kevin did all this research and got the estimate.
Thank you, Mr. Good. I'll come back to the rest of the public in a moment, but does anyone have any specific questions for Mr. Good that they'd like to ask? Okay. Kevin, question for you. I'm trying to look at the proposed layout and compare it to this. The curb and sidewalk would be on the inner, would it
About
be?
here, I think the property line runs just, you can see where that pole comes down. It's just
Right.
on the inside of that. And it runs right along the edge of that line.
That's the property line. So much of that area, although some of it is the city right away, a decent amount of it is private property as well?
I think all of the sidewalk and curbing would be constructed in public right away.
Okay. And the fire hydrant would be towards the, on the outside of the sidewalk, or it would be closer in between the sidewalk and the property line?
It would be behind the sidewalk.
Okay. Okay. So, I mean, it looks like that is a storm drain right there, is it not?
Yes.
So would a sidewalk be constructed there, would
If I
essentially
recall,
block?
without looking at it too closely, the hydrant gets relocated maybe 10 feet over.
Okay.
To allow for the ADA landing to be right about, and I think he was able to leave the storm drain in place.
That's what it shows.
Because, okay, I thought my memory
Sorry,
served me well, yeah.
I'm not an engineer, so I
Right, and we do
appreciate
that,
the-
obviously, the city,
appreciate-
we would do the hydrant relocation in-house, so that, I don't think he had a cost in there.
Okay, yeah, I didn't see a
Right,
relocation
but basically,
cost
that's,
for
if
that.
the storm drain remains where it is, the landing would be about where the circling cursor is.
And
then
is
it
there
runs.
also, where it looks like some leaves are piled up there, is that also a storm drain?
No, it drains down this way to here. So
So
that's kind of the
what
drainage
is that?
I guess
it
that's
looks like
probably
a
a
s-
collection of stones and leaves. Is that, Jeff? Yeah. Oh, no, you're right. I stand corrected. There is a drain there in the street. Yeah.
Okay.
Good eye. And you can see there's that shoulder that is a kind of a pseudo shoulder.
Okay. And in your opinion, is the runoff into those two storm drains, is that a problematic? Is it problematic? Would this help solve more than one issue?
I don't know that it would do anything with respect to the stormwater. You don't see a lot of water accumulation there other than maybe like right here, but it's not one of our problem areas in town.
Any other questions for Kevin?
I have one. So Kevin, you're putting there's a I'm looking at this drawing in the attachment here. So there's going to be a crosswalk that goes at the end of the sidewalk, crossing Grove Street, going over to the park, it looks like.
Yeah, so it catches this piece of sidewalk here that then goes out to the south side of Grove Park and around.
Right, which is good for getting people to cross the road. Now, on the other end of the property where the sidewalk terminates on number 8 on this drawing here, are we going to put a crosswalk across going over towards, to tie in
No,
with?
because there's nothing for it to tie to. So that was a great question because we were looking at it and go, well, why would we put this here, right?
Right.
So it's not, DelDOT's answer is it's not an off-ramp for the people that are already on the sidewalk. It's an on-ramp for people that are walking down the street so they can get on.
Okay,
Yeah.
If you
Okay, and
roll-
there would be no intent of putting a crosswalk across Columbia.
that's fine, because if you roll your cursor back the other way, keep coming towards Grove Park. I just thought there was a crosswalk, there was a landing area on the other side. No, in the middle of the street. Keep coming.
Right
I thought it
here.
would hit to that land. It's not going to hit to that landing area.
No, it is not.
Okay.
Because it's all the way at the
all the way at the end.
back end of his property.
Right.
Do we then, would we be taking away those 2 legitimate parking spots?
Yes. It comes at a cost of, a couple of parking spots. Like I said, probably, very likely a tree, maybe not, depending upon how big of a curve we want to try to make in the sidewalk. But yeah, certainly these trees would be impacted. But there's one big one. Jeff probably has a better idea. And this is a 3-year-old photo. This one, I think, is a pretty significant tree. Yeah. Yep.
That picture, there's some sidewalk there already, and it would be joining that
No, there's no sidewalk
sidewalk
on
on
this
that
side.
side at all. So how many houses would that go by?
Just the one property.
Oh, just one.
So on the drawing, you'll see it goes to the kind of the back end of his property.
So who would pay for the sidewalk?
The city would. He's asking the city to.
But that was one of my questions. Isn't it typically homeowners pay for the sidewalk? Because I think that's the way it is. The homeowners pay for sidewalks, and because I've had to have ours repaired and we had to pay for it.
And the repair is, Chief may know,
I
the
think,
building license guys would know whether, if it's whether the city does that or the homeowner would do that, yeah.
I don't have
Okay.
the correct answer right now.
But my recollection is any new construction, and I think if there's no curb or sidewalk, if the project is in excess of $20,000, it's the homeowner's responsibility to install curbing and sidewalk, is my understanding. I'm not 100% certain, but that's my recollection.
I think it is something like that. Most cases, the homeowners are responsible for the sidewalk, but.
We can certainly see if we can get someone from building and licensing in here. We could delay a vote on the project while we get input from them. I mean, whatever the pleasure of the committee is.
Well, I think the sidewalk is a new feature that we weren't anticipating originally. And I guess I don't understand why it's required to have a sidewalk with the curbing. We were just talking about curbing to prevent cars parking onto private property. So why is the sidewalk required?
So it's my understanding, not being the expert, but to do the curbing, then you were required to do an ADA accessible ramp. So our thought, I think, at the original idea was we just do the landing, which is what has been done, I guess, other times throughout town. But when we took it to DelDOT, they go, no, you have to run that sidewalk at least the length of that property. What specific, code they cited to do that, I wouldn't know. But that's what they said we had to do in order for them to say okay on putting something on Columbia.
Yeah, and I guess, going on to my other comments are, I was taken aback by the cost. And I had a question about, one of the biggest costs is DelDOT MOT. I have no idea what that stands for. What's
So that's maintenance of traffic, so that's the flaggers that stand out there to manage traffic as it goes by. So it's because it's a state road again, so they have different requirements, but it's a guy on each end with the flagger and the commo back and forth to
So
send
doing the
people down.
work, that's how much it would cost to manage the traffic? Okay. And then, well, now my other question is, how successful is the city in negotiating contracts with DelDOT? I mean, is there some way that the city can, negotiate and get this price down?
So we would, I mean, it's over, it's roughly 30,000, so we would put it out to bid. So we'd put a bid package together and put it out and see what the bids come in at. So it's not a contract with DelDOT to do it. We would hire, a pavement contractor to come in and do that work.
Okay.
So this is a engineer's proposed estimate. We would actually put it out to bid and get contracts and award a contract.
I will say, because we go, oh, man, 30,000. I compared this to the pricing we got on the last paving contract when we did Maryland and Olive this past year. It was very competitive with that. So I think the pricing, his estimate, I think is very good. Now the MOT varies because you don't really know how long it's going to take them to do, so you put a little extra in there. So that'll vary a little bit. But the actual cost for the linear foot of curbing and square foot of sidewalk was very competitive with what we got on the last bid contract for the pavement. And of course, probably add 5% to that now with the way things are.
We do have Corey from Building and Licensing has joined us. So Corey, I'm just going to give you a brief info on what we're looking at here. We have a engineer proposal to put a sidewalk and curbing on this corner property at Columbia Avenue and Grove Street. It's been requested by the homeowner. So we've got permission from DelDOT to do it and an engineer's proposal. The question came up, who generally pays for new sidewalk and curbing? I think we all know that it's the homeowner's responsibility to maintain. But if a new sidewalk and curbing is required, what triggers that requirement and who pays for it? Do you know that? Yeah, if you wouldn't mind coming up or to the microphone. Sorry to put you on the spot.
This is my first time speaking here with one of these.
Oh, well.
You're right. Generally speaking, it's the homeowner's responsibility for all curbing and sidewalks in front of their properties. That includes properties on corners. Usually it's triggered when anytime in a given year they have projects that go beyond $20,000. That's when that gets pulled in. For streets that don't have sidewalks already on them, there's a 50% rule. So if at least 50% of the street has sidewalks that are existing, then the homeowner's required to do that. If it's a case where the street has no sidewalks or curbing, that's not specifically stated in the code that I know of, but going off of everything else as it's stated in the code, it would still be the responsibility of the homeowner as what we have written.
Okay. Thank you for that, and I appreciate you knowing that off the top of your head, and I'm impressed that I remember the $20,000 rule. Any other questions for Corey? Thank you. And I'm glad, we're honored that we were able to be your first speaking engagement here in the city.
I've got my commercial certification test academy going on right now, so fingers crossed I'll have my commercial certification by next week.
Excellent. All right.
That's actually
Thank-
the more impressive thing, that he was actually in the office.
Thank you, Corey. So there, we've heard that. Kevin, one last question from me. So potentially that significant tree may need to come down. Was Liz consulted about this project at all?
No, not at this point.
Is she generally weigh in on city projects that may?
Yeah, if we were going to go forward with the project, we'd definitely get her involved, because there are some there that would have to either be trimmed or roots cut, so she would definitely be involved in that.
So we've got a few options. We can make a recommendation to the mayor and commissioners. We can take no action. Or we can, if you want more information or want to think about it, it can always be tabled, which I would prefer not to do, but it's at the pleasure of the committee members. And I'm just going to pause for a moment. We did hear from Mr. Good. I'll ask him if he wants to say anything else.
Yeah, just, I understand everything that.
If you wouldn't mind, just
I understand that there might be some cost-sharing rule or, but I would just hope the city keeps in mind that this is a problem that's not caused by the homeowner or a desire of the homeowner particularly. It's because of a commercial enterprise across the street that uses the other side of the street as their excess parking area. And I've requested this to protect that area from, not my car, but from dozens of workmen, construction, and the, of course, Royal Farms customers, that when they don't see an easy place to park in Royal Farms, which is almost always, they'll try to park there, even if it's illegal. And that has caused a lot of negative externalities, not just to me, but also from the city's point of view. It's a safety hazard because of, particularly the farmers market, we have lots of people walking down Columbia. And as I say, I walk that area all the time, and it's hazardous because it's often blocked by cars that are not mine, that are from Royal Farms or some construction. I've even had construction trucks parked the opposite way, facing up that picture, because it was easier for them to do. And so it's not just my doing. I wouldn't do anything if I didn't have the Royal Farms excess parking there all the time. And then there's the erosion issue. I mean, it's probably not the biggest erosion issue, but whenever it rains, there's a huge puddle right around there, because this would help the drainage, and also it looks so ugly. And right now I have those 3 cones to try to mitigate it, and it looks terrible. It looks like a construction zone, and I can't do anything about it. That's why I'm asking the city for its help.
All right, thank you. Anyone else from the public like to?
Afternoon. Walter Brittingham, 123 Hanopen Avenue. I also suggest that in the middle of this discussion, before this gets chopped off, that item C becomes appropriate to this discussion, because when you clean up the north side of the street westbound, and if you have the vehicles in the proper direction parking as you propose to finish this, you're going to get rid of some trees. you're gonna have the concrete trucks and everybody still allowed to park up against the curb? Is that what you foresee, Kevin?
I wouldn't think there'd be any legal parking
Pardon?
against that. I don't believe there'd be any legal parking against that curb
So
because
are you
there's not
saying
going to
that
be
the
space for
curb
that.
is gonna come out to the edge of the roadway?
Yes, much closer than you would think now. I mean, if you wanted to think of a curb line there.
I remind you having something to do with this, but nothing. The parking lot on the west end of the Royal Farm Store is the City of Rehoboth parking lot. Doesn't belong to them. Okay? Anybody can go in there anytime and park. And we used to own that property, and I know the progression of the sales, and it still is property. It goes back to what Mayor Hughes and them negotiated, and if they tow somebody out of there, it's illegal. This man knows that. We have another situation that across the street from here, where you come out of that parking lot that I allude is the City of Rehoboth parking lot, and it is a no left turn. And our illustrious past mayor got into it and they put up a no left turn sign. The problem with when you come out of there, you come out of the back, it should have had a Jersey barrier or something forcing people to go up on the inside of the at the outside of the property line so that they couldn't come out and just try to make a U-turn. And then you have a fair amount of people that come down Columbia Avenue going westbound, and they park in that last parking spot that's at the back corner of the Royal Farm Store. It is public property. I know where the property line is. And that parking spot needs to go away so that people can't come out of there and make a U-turn, and then they have people coming up behind them from the traffic circle at a high rate of speed. We have absolutely no enforcement down in that area because, excuse me, we don't have enough help, but the police people on market day, they make sure everything's okay down at the restrooms. But there's nobody down there, no presence down there, say, move it on. The sidewalk and curbing would be a big help, huge safety advantage. But it needs some other improvements on that intersection also. That's close. Genuine need to slow the traffic down. But when you have somebody back out of the back of the park, roughly the back corner of the overhang of the Royal Farm Store and a straight line parallel up Columbia Avenue. Inside of that is private property, and the first 8 foot theoretically is a shoulder where the Pepsi truck and everybody else park. The Pepsi people, and most of them do a pretty good job. We have Elliott and people like that that back their truck up there so they can unload in the back door. The people, the drivers have been very nice about that. They don't project out into the highway. The chief got into that, and that goes much better. But it's an honesty system, and part of the problem again is Rehoboth's so popular and people are such a hurry to get where they're going. It's dangerous, and the sidewalk and the curb works. But if you're going to make that last 100 foot depth of their property, and you're going to take that parking away, there's going to be more accidents. Thank you.
Walter, you've said that before. You said that parking lot in back
No.
of the
no, sir.
store.
No, sir. West of. If you look at the front, well, I define from.
I thought there was
Rehoboth
just one in the front and one in the back.
Well, you got Columbia on the back, and you've got Rehoboth on the front.
Yeah.
And then you have the piece of the roundabout coming around. That's the west parking lot. It's probably a half a dozen parking spaces in there, and they're signed up there private parking for only, and that's not true.
And John and Walter, I don't mean to cut you off, but that specific issue isn't on the agenda. So I really want to focus just on the other side of the street there with what's being proposed. And I understand what you're saying, and we'll take it under
Well, it's
advisement.
not a straight lane, so it changes lane width restrictions. And as you go around the corner on a turn, typically uniform design standards in a case like this, and Del Dot knows what that is. They give you a little bit more radius for the number of tractor trailers and everything going around there because they have to get left to make the turn. So the other side of the street needs an option, it needs an examination at the same time.
We'll take that under advisement. Thank you, Walter. My takeaway was that you're in favor of the sidewalk and curbing.
There is absolutely no enforcement down on that corner, a policeman or a presence to allude to the people to get out of the damn roadway. They walk in the roadway, they go both ways, they don't care. But when there's an accident, these people have to go down there and do it, but they're not there. Part of the problem is there's not enough people. Then you have to have trained people, but then you have to slow the traffic, mitigate the traffic that's coming around the corner out of the roundabout.
Walter, thank you.
Carolyn Diefendorfer, 113 Newcastle. I guess my question is the only option curbing with a sidewalk, or could some piling, you know, those pole things go along there? Because I do agree that that's a dangerous intersection. You know, when we're on our bike, you have to go out far to see if there's cars coming because of those cars parked illegally. And I don't know if a more cost-effective solution may be something like those poles, you know, that are painted yellow or whatever, and clearly indicate that there's no parking there, might be another option. But I don't know if Del Dot would allow that. But I support something being done at that curb, and I think from a safety standpoint, the city should do it, not the homeowner.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have a couple questions. So, Kevin, when I'm looking at that picture right there, and I'm comparing it with the two attachments, it looks like the sidewalk goes, his proposed sidewalk is in between the
Like it
two.
runs right here.
In between the two, it goes right in between the two storm drains and runs down. Okay, and then I'm looking at on the survey, the fire hydrant is in front of his property, and I'm trying to figure out where exactly his property line is on that picture there. In other words, the sidewalk won't be on his property, is that correct?
Correct.
It's close though, right? It butts right up to it, I guess.
Right, because you see the RW, the right-of-way line on the drawing,
Which one?
on the
Yes.
the engineered
Yes, yes,
drawing. So
yes.
that's his property line.
Okay. So it's almost right up to, it's just a little bit to the south of the fire hydrant. So how far, I guess I could ask, how far do those cars come up? Do they come up way up by your bushes?
Oh, should I show you?
Sure, I just so I could see. I'm sure they do, I'm sure.
I've had cars park up to these trees, because they don't want to get a ticket. I've had cars park up to, well, there's a tree here, but over here. I've had cars park here. I've had cars park everywhere where there isn't something bigger than the car stopping it. And I constantly trying to make this look a little better. And I planted grass about 3-4 times, including 2 weeks ago, and it's impossible because the cars, people too, but I could accept people, but the cars are constantly going over it. Now, I did try to mitigate it with those 3 cones. It looks horrible, and if we want even a more permanent thing, it would look even more horrible. So.
Okay. And my last question, there's no ever discussion about a sidewalk all the way up Columbia, right? We've never talked about that. There's been no proposals of that, correct?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
I just want to mention that anything that we decide to do here would be nothing, or we're just making a recommendation to the mayor and commissioners. That can include where the cost, who pays for it, whether it's the city or recommend that the homeowners, or we can leave that part silent and let the mayor and commissioners deal with it. So there's a few options we have.
I think we make a decision now, what we think. And it's just a recommendation to the city, and they can follow through with it or not, or modify. But I think maybe we just deal with it now. And,
I agree.
well, I guess I think my feeling is we've come this far in planning it, we should go forward with it. And for me, the safety issues, and I also think the fact there's a fire hydrant there, that you have to discourage parking from getting in the way of the fire hydrant. So, you know, I support doing something to improve it. And if it's the curbing and the sidewalk, to me, I think it would be okay perhaps to do some cost sharing between the city and the homeowner. And I think the other reason to do that is that behooves everyone to look for if there are any other less expensive options. So I think we proceed in some way, and it could be cost sharing.
Well, Donna, what would you think about letting the city pay for the curb and the homeowner pay for the sidewalk? I mean, I've paid a lot of money on my sidewalk. I've been cited several times, and my sidewalk was that far off, you know, and I still had to replace sidewalk. So I've always paid for it.
Yeah, I could see that since most homeowners pay for the sidewalk. I wasn't going to specify what the cost sharing would be, specifically what the homeowner or how they would do it. I would just say some cost sharing. So let them negotiate it. But that would be one way, that the homeowner pay for the sidewalk, or whatever. Or in some cases, I think they said sometimes it's 50-50. Just some cost sharing.
Kevin, can you think of any other situations where we've done something like this?
We did a cost-sharing agreement on 2nd Street outside of Mark Schall's store. So I know he paid for part of that work. The
So
corner.
Not cost sharing related, but are there any other areas where we've come in and suggested or putting in a sidewalk and curb for various reasons? Not that you can think of in recent
There's been
times.
some talk about Scarborough. You know, there's a bunch of lots on Scarborough that don't have a curb and don't have a sidewalk. That's the only one, but I don't think it's been too big of a discussion at this point. Yeah.
I think it's,
Yeah.
I think it's not right that the cars are parking on the man's on his property. I mean, I don't think that's right at all. So somehow I think it would be nice if we could figure out a way to move forward to keep cars off his property. Otherwise, he has to call the police all the time to move them or ticket them, and they don't have the manpower to do that. And what's the distance between a fire hydrant? Is it 20 feet or something you have to park from it? 30. So they could probably be calling you all day long to ticket cars, and you don't have the time for that. I just think it would be nice to keep cars off his property. I think we ought to move forward to do something.
So it is signed. I mean, there is a sign, no parking forward of this spot, which sits back here toward the edge of that timbers that you put in a couple years ago.
You put in a sign there, I appreciate
But-
that. And you
but right,
also
it's-
put that yellow.
We striped it a couple
Stripe,
times. It just doesn't keep them down.
Someone's trying to run into the Royal Farms and get cigarettes and it doesn't matter. And also for the farmer's market, that's where the real danger is, as was mentioned, between the cars and the people, and there's no place for people to walk except on Columbia. And if there are any cars there, which there almost always are, it's a dangerous situation. And, yeah, anything would be good. Yeah, remember, I requested a curb, not a sidewalk. The sidewalk has to come with it.
Jeffrey, I'm sorry. Can you please go up to the microphone?
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to state that, yes, the city has tried to help me several times by putting a yellow stripe, by putting a sign on the Royal Farms not to make a left. They used to make a left almost to where the fire hydrant is coming out of there. They would make, especially a truck, would make a left and almost hit the fire hydrant. Now, I'd say it cut it down by 90% putting that sign. But still, people do that. And so, yeah, people know it's illegal. They have to know that, but it's not enough. Unfortunately, you need a physical barrier. A curb would do it, but for, for disability purposes, we need to triple the price, basically, probably, and put a sidewalk, which is fine. And if you wanted to put a sidewalk through the whole Columbia, that would be great too, but that, that's a different issue. But, so yeah, anything you guys could come up with would be very helpful.
Well, I would entertain, Mr. Brittingham, sure.
Thank you all for the paperwork. Walter Birmingham. One of the things that happens here is, I have it as page 3 of 5, showing the hash mark for the crosswalk. And as you can see in this picture here, when you come down, the predominant direction is the turn towards the roundabout. The sidewalk arrangement brings it down on a straightaway and leaves an open bump out, which is in itself calming for people making the right-hand walk or turn. It provides a place of protection. I don't know what this little jagged thing is, if that's the piece of curbing coming around by the sidewalk, but I don't see the two directions of Columbia Avenue on this, so I don't know how far Columbia comes over. So as you can see here, this is the predominant flow of traffic coming around, and this is the piece that causes the problem because cars are allowed to turn here, and I don't see a problem with that. The problem is caused by the cars here, and I believe these cars are legally parked. I believe they're legally parked off the roadway, because if you look at the back of the cross arm, there is the back of the property, there's the property line.
Yeah.
Basically, when you drop the property line straight down off the back of the line, that's called the road, center, and field side phase. That's where the parking line is. A concrete truck can park there. A pickup truck can park there. A six-wheeler can park there. The property line over here is at this edge of this light pole. It goes down to this corner. The whole thing needs to be looked at. But this works. Maybe Jersey barriers giving a correction to force people out. But then you still have the traffic coming around here that crosses the center line to make the turn because they cannot stay within that width of that roadway.
Thank you, Walter. I would entertain a motion if someone wants to make one.
I'll make a motion that we encourage the city to proceed with this project and that they modify it as need be and encourage cost sharing if necessary. But we feel curbing would be important there at that particular corner.
I'm going to clarify.
Okay,
what
very good.
I think I've heard you say. Your motion is that the Streets and Transportation Committee recommend to the mayor and commissioners that we proceed with the installation of a sidewalk and curbing abutting the 1 Grove Street property as outlined in the Beacon Engineering proposal, which is dated 3/22/22, and that cost sharing be considered and any modifications at the discretion of the mayor and commissioners. Is that?
That's very
what I
good,
heard?
perfect.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. I'm going to do a roll call vote. Ms. Mayberry,
Aye.
John,
Aye.
Mr. Diefendorfer,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. The motion carries, and the recommendation will be sent to the mayor and commissioners. Thank you. Kevin, thank you for all your work on this. Donna, you were, the next on the agenda is item C, which is discussion on parking and unloading of delivery vehicles and the impact on traffic flow. You were kind of pushing this one along. I have a hard stop at 3 o'clock
Okay.
for a meeting with the city manager. So
Well, I'm glad it's on the agenda that you carried the item over, and that, because from our last discussion, I do believe it is an important issue to the city, and that it was looked at in 2014, and that just underlines how it has been an important issue. There was a good bit of effort there that got stymied, and things haven't improved. It's only gotten worse in the last 7 years. So that was my takeaway, really, was it is an important issue, and I would encourage, and I know, of course, that the businesses in town would push back because it's inconvenient, okay? And that's what they expressed before, and it's a complicated issue that it involves a lot of different negotiation and things like that. But my thought is, any change we recommend in town, there's always pushback. So that's just life, any change, people will question it. I guess the main thing would be to encourage the businesses to recognize that this could be to their benefit. That just imagine how nice it would be if traffic could flow freely around both lanes in town, how that would help, how it would cut down on frustration. And so I think that's really in the shop owner's interest, and if they could see that, and maybe they could buy into it, and I would just hope the Chamber and Main Street and things like that, and we could encourage them to buy into it.
I think I don't disagree with you. I think what would be helpful, though, is if you wanted to do some research on what other municipalities have done, what could be done, what's been discussed here in Rehoboth before, outline some things that could address it, so then we can go through and talk about each specific thing that could be done. I know oftentimes we've got, mandatory delivery hours. Some municipalities have that. Installation of more loading and unloading zones. I mean, there's various things. So I think if you want to move this forward, if you could put a little, one sheet together that says these are options to address the problem, and then get other people involved in the discussion and kind of take it from there. I think would be helpful.
Yeah, I like other people's feedback or ideas on this issue, if that's something we want to proceed with or keep looking at.
Want to go?
I do.
You do?
Yeah. I think some of the drivers are new enough or inexperienced enough. They don't know that we have 2 parking areas right at the end of the street, right there at the beach. I've actually told one driver that, and he said, "Oh, I didn't know," and he moved his truck and went up there. But you're right, we need more parking areas, and we do need to work, I think, with the chamber, because the problem that we found before was that the employers didn't want to have people there that early. I mean, I don't think the trucking people would object at all to coming at 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the morning, whatever. But that's been the problem. Am I right, Chief?
That's correct. That was one issue, yes.
And I think the example,
Did he say?
he said yes, he said that was right.
Yes, that was one topic that was brought up by businesses having an extra employee, and there were several other issues along those lines as well.
Yeah. So, Dave, how do you feel on this issue? Something to pursue, or?
Well, I think we could pursue it, but I think it's going to be difficult because as we talked last time, and I'm sure there's a way maybe to look into some options, but again, with the two-lane road there, or on Rehoboth Avenue, the parking to have a delivery vehicle, a place for them to park and stop and deliver goods, because they come all times of the day, and you can't tell a business only 8 o'clock you're going to get your deliveries, because you got seafood coming in, you have beer coming in, you have all kind of different things that the consumers want to buy. So if we limit what time they can park and stop, I think that's going to be very difficult. But it doesn't mean that we can't look into it, like Ed asked, if you could look at some other options and come up with a possible plan that we could all take a look at, what you think from any kind of research, what other towns are doing. I mean, I think we should all look at it, but I think it's going to be difficult on Rehoboth Avenue. It's just with the traffic flow.
And Donna, if you want to meet with Main Street and the Chamber in between now and the next meeting and get some feedback from them, I mean, I think that would be great too.
Well, I think I could float the idea or send it or ask them to entertain that idea, or others could, or as you know, businesses, if this becomes an issue and that they're concerned, they can bring it up among themselves or do that. I guess the other thing that hit me was, you know, again, the analogy when the city changed the trash can regulations, that the trash cans couldn't go out on the curb before a certain time, 5, 6 o'clock at night. Trash cans had to be off of it. Well, that negatively impacted about 2/3 of the property owners in this town, and that there was a lot of pushback. And I felt that regulation was unfair because so many of the property owners were here for the weekend, and no fault of their own, it didn't. But the city went ahead with it, and then what's become of it is that homeowners and property owners learned ways to manage it, and businesses sprung up to take care of the moving the trash cans back and forth to the curb, created jobs, and the town looks a lot better. I mean, I have to admit, it was a good change, and the town overall looks much better with the trash cans off the street, not there for weeks and months at a time. So I think that there's an example of other people who were inconvenienced, but when they went ahead with the new regulation, it did benefit the town, it benefited everybody. So I kind of think that's what could happen here. But yeah, I think any plan, I don't imagine us coming up with a plan itself, because that's really going to have to be negotiated between the city and the business owners. So I mean, we can throw out the possibilities to kick off a conversation or discussion about it, but that's ultimately going to be other people, and there'll be modifications. So I wouldn't encourage us to spend a lot of time coming up with some definitive plan, that we would just encourage the city to maybe look into this, that as it did in the past, to lead the way.
Thank you, Donna. I will keep this on the next month agenda for continued discussion. Go ahead, Walter. You want to add something?
Sorry. Walter Brigham, John. We've discussed this for years. Your subject's too narrow. This eludes Rehoboth Avenue. You got a bigger problem. You got all over town. You got people parking on the roadways. They won't do enough about it. Their shift commanders say they have the right to block Columbia Avenue, to build the house. They have parking division. The guy decides how long is the person going to be there. They can be half out in the roadway with their trailers and their trucks, and it's not black and white. There is no firm commercial parking. We have a bigger section of the town that's residential than we do Rehoboth Avenue. And we're not getting people going out and getting the people off the damn roadway so the traffic can get through. This is not the right subject. It needs to be broken apart, and we need to have enforcement, or we need to farm it out, because we're not getting it.
Thank you, Walter. Anyone else from the public? All right, I'm going to leave, we'll continue discussion on that. The next,
And I also would like to add pedestrian walking guide. I mean, here's one that we've had before, parking and walking, and, you know, pedestrians are part of our traffic too.
yeah, and we do have a new pedestrian
if you put
parking
that
guide.
on there,
I will add that to
Okay.
an agenda, and I'll forward the electronic version of that out.
Right.
Our next meeting is scheduled for June 16th at 2 PM. Linda, could you, I originally had them scheduled at 2, and I thought that Ann said it needed to be changed to 2:30, but it was back 2 o'clock this? 2 is fine with you guys from a staffing perspective? Okay. Yep, 2 o'clock, the third Thursday of every month, which is June 16th, next month. Any final citizen comment? Chief Banks, Kevin, anything from you guys? Thank you both for being here. Thank you all for being here as well. And with that, it is
Move to adjourn?
meeting adjourned at 3 o'clock. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good job.
Yeah. Is it the third?